Hey lovelies, it's Kate. Welcome to another speed build. In this speed build, I'm building a modern mansion on a 40 by 30 lot in Oasis Springs. So for this build, I took inspiration from a picture that was shared on Twitter by Millennial Sim Builds. The handle is @MillennialSim, and this account is sharing all kinds of different pictures of houses so simmers can take inspiration from them, which is a great thing. And I stumbled upon them a while ago, and a week ago or something, Yorkie built something that was based on a picture that they had shared. So I kind of took a look at their Twitter account and I just fell in love with a house that they shared on their Twitter account. And it was a lot of fun to build by reference for once, because usually I rarely do that and I'm not the biggest fan of doing that. And I still kind of try to put my own ideas into this. So the shape is very heavily inspired by the reference, but I changed up a couple of things. So I did my own thing with the whole area in the front with all the stairs, and also the reference picture has a garage in the front, and I decided against this for this build, and I just added some windows and changed that up. And I also added a diagonal section on the left side, and I also didn't 100% follow all the colors, so I kind of threw in my own ideas into the mix. So I just said that I'm usually not the biggest fan of building by reference, and the reason for that is that I actually think it's so much harder to properly follow a reference picture than just kind of winging it and doing your own thing, because you kind of have to do it justice. But sometimes it can be a lot of fun, and this was totally the case because the reference picture was just so amazing that it was really fun, and it kind of worked out immediately. Sometimes when you try to recreate something, it looks very good on the picture, but it doesn't really work in the game, because of course, even if you really try to replicate a house in The Sims, it just looks a little bit different. It's just the way the game looks and all that, and especially if you don't use CC and you just kind of see what you can do with what the game has to offer. So yeah, but it worked out really well in this case, in my opinion. But let's talk about what's actually going on here. So as you can see, this is the shape of the house, and the right side sits on some columns, like some type of beach house almost. This is also how the house was designed in the reference picture. And then on the left side, I added a room at the bottom and then a diagonal section on top of it, so it just looks more interesting. I just felt like it looked too simple in my opinion. It was just almost like one box when you just looked at the shape itself. So I feel like the diagonal section just makes it look a little bit more interesting, and I really like to add some diagonal sections. And at this point I really just had to make sure that the whole roof situation works out, because I really had to make sure that nothing sticks out somewhere where it's not supposed to stick out. But it all worked fine, and I kind of merged them together so it looks good. And then I started to work on the colors. So just like in the reference picture, I wanted to use a beautiful, really warm brown. So there's just a lot of warmth going on. I generally like to do that for my modern build. So even though the build itself looks very kind of modern and sometimes minimalistic, more or less, I feel like that would just, I don't know, creates a little contrast. It makes the whole build look very warm, cozy and inviting. And I feel like the eye catcher of this house is definitely the front section above what was originally a garage, where I just placed 4 big windows. It's just the eye catcher in my opinion, and so beautiful. And then I just added more details and added a trim all around the bottom, and I wasn't sure which roof trim I would like to use. So at first, as you can see, I was going for white, then I changed it to black and to brown, but eventually I decided to go with white because I felt like the roof is so dark, and when you looked at it, when I zoomed out, there wasn't enough contrast going on. Like, you couldn't really tell what is even going on. Like, when you look at the build, I really wanted the roof lines and all that to be visible immediately, and I wanted it to look very balanced. And I felt like when I changed the roof trim color, this kind of worked out. And I'm also going to change the color of the stairs. I decided to make them black. So I don't know, there was just a situation going on with how to make the colors balanced, but then eventually I decided to use black stairs and the white roof trims. And as always, I added a lot of rocks to hide the steep slopes. Here we go again. I feel like this also adds a bit of contrast to this build because again it's very modern and all that, and this kind of makes it look a little bit more natural and inviting, and I feel like this kind of goes so well with the whole theme of this build because there's so much wood going on. So this build is kind of a combination of very modern aspects and very natural components, like the wood and the rocks, and I think that's so great. I'm also going to add a couple of plants on the exterior just so again I can have some natural elements and it looks very almost like a lodge. Like now when I look at it, it almost reminds me of some type of lodge that has a very modern theme to it. It's like a very modern kind of lodge, but not really. And also I added a fence on the right side between the columns, and this way the columns aren't actually as visible. It almost looks like some type of wall, but it's just columns and a fence. The fence is part of the Perfect Patio stuff pack. I think it looks very modern and the color was just perfect because I was going for that very warm brown as I said, and the fence has almost an identical color. It's just so amazing. I really love to use it for modern builds, and it's available in different swatches of course. And for the back of the house I used a black swatch, as you can see on the little patio area that I'm working on at the moment. So for the back section I of course just kind of tried to replicate what I did in the front. I of course wanted to stay within the same style and I used the same windows. I just kind of changed a couple of things up, and I had to kind of figure out what to do with the terrain in the back because I used a lot of terrain in the front as you just saw, and part of the house sits on top of the terrain. Like the main part in the center just sits on top of a little hill, and then we have the bottom section that is below that kind of. So this was kind of tricky, especially for the front section, but you will see what I'm talking about later because I kind of had to figure out how to make this work because as you can see I have kind of multiple levels going on in the front at the moment. We have this window at the bottom, there's a section of floor in front of it, and then we have like a lower section. And I kind of had to really connect all that, and so at some points it was kind of too low to add stairs, so I just, as you saw, I had to make it lower, and then I had to figure out in the end how to kind of connect that. As you see, I just used terrain paint at this point just so I could create a little pass, and that pass is starting at the bottom where the stairs are kind of meeting, so the Sims would be able to just walk up. There is a simple rule: as long as you are able to apply terrain paint to a section of terrain, your Sims will be able to actually walk on it. But as soon as you cannot apply any terrain paint, or as soon as the terrain changes color, you can see that at the edges of the stairs when it just turns to that weird kind of sand color, then the terrain will be too steep and your Sims won't be able to walk on that. So I just created that little path, but eventually I'm going to change that up, as you will see later. As you will see in the very end of the video, I'm going to change that because I felt like there was so much going on in the front, especially with these hedges and too many rocks and all that. So when I looked at the build in the end, I was kind of happy, but I didn't like the front section. So whatever I'm working on right now, I'm going to change that. I still included that so you can kind of see the thought process that kind of went into that, and I don't know how I kind of changed things up. This is a small cutting board that is supposed to go on a wall actually, but I sized it up and I used it as some type of fence or barrier. I think it's part of the cool kitchen stuff pack, but again, as I said, I'm going to remove that. This was kind of tricky because I kind of did so much crazy stuff with the terrain for this. The stairs completely consist out of terrain. Like sometimes I like to use some foundations and I connect them and all that, but this is just terrain, and it was a little bit tricky, especially because some of the fences looked so wonky because of that, the hedges in the front, and I really didn't like this look because for a very kind of clean, minimalistic, modern style, I felt like there was too much going on and it didn't really look modern, and it kind of, I don't know, it was drawing the eye away from the actual build, and I didn't like that. So here I'm working on another little patio outside area where Sims can just hang out and sit, and I added a roof. This once again was something that I just added to the build because I felt like there was something missing, and I felt like this table is just perfect for this style for some reason. And I also added a little chair over there and 2 chairs and just a couple of things. And this house isn't actually this big. It was built on a 40 by 30 lot, as I said, and there are 2 bedrooms, 2 regular bedrooms and 2 kids rooms, and also I think 3 bathrooms, maybe 4. And I'm going to include other information in the description box down below as always, so in case you want to download this lot, you can find it in the gallery and take a look and can decide if you want to use it. As always, I didn't use any CC, of course, and yeah, I'm going to include the gallery information and the packs that I used for this in the description box as always. And I added a couple of benches and just lights and just, yeah, different things. And here I'm starting to work on the floor plan. So as I said, I really like to add a diagonal section to a house, and I feel like this makes a house oftentimes look very unique and interesting. But there's a downside to it. You kind of have to make the floor plan work, and as soon as you kind of add a diagonal section, you really have to work out what you do on the inside. But for this build, it actually wasn't too bad. And this section where I'm just adding the stairs to, this big room kind of, this is going to be the kitchen and the dining room. At first I wasn't even sure how to kind of furnish this and where to put which room, because this was still kind of a weird floor plan, even though it wasn't that bad as I said. But then I felt like this would be the perfect place because there are these huge windows, and I figured, just imagine sitting on the dining table in front of these beautiful windows in a sun-flooded room, just amazing. And then I added a little half wall, so I would have just a little kind of separation between the kitchen area and the dining area. I used a half wall and I just kind of sectioned off that whole kitchen area. These counters are part of the Perfect Patio stuff pack, I think, so they are actually supposed to be used on the outside, but of course you can use these counters for whatever you like. And I felt like this very modern design and the white color are just perfect, and I decided to just use white walls. So this is something that I rarely do because it looks so modern, but at the same time it can kind of look a little bit bland. But I feel like for this build it's just perfect. And I also decided to use some other wall colors, a very dark gray and this brown wall color here, so there is just a bit of variation going on, so it's not just 100% white, it's just kind of the main color, I'd say. And then of course I just added a little bit of clutter, and I didn't want to kind of go overboard with this because at the end of the day this is a modern kind of minimalistic build, so I wanted to use a lot of decoration and plants and stuff, but not too much. And I mainly used these, these are city living pictures, and I mainly used these all over the build in different swatches because these are so modern and so colorful at the same time, and in a very kind of very neutral color build. This is just the pop of color that this build just needs, in my opinion. And this is the living room area. So as I said, there are some challenges that come with a diagonal section in a build, and here I present you the diagonal living room. So I thought that this would be just a very cozy kind of nook, so I just added this TV to the wall and the city living sofas and the armchair and all that. So it's kind of like a area that is right in front of the entry door almost, so you kind of go into the front door and then you are inside the living room, which I think is kind of a good thing. And then right around the corner you have the kitchen and the dining room area, so it's kind of all connected, but at the same time it's also separated because, as you can see, I kept it open, but there's still a lot of walls in between, so it's kind of a open concept that has some kind of room dividers included, you could say. And this is the bathroom. Of course, I also wanted to keep the bathroom very modern. I used these curtains. They are part of Get Famous, but then I got rid of them because I kind of didn't like the look. They looked too old-fashioned, so they kind of didn't fit into this bathroom. I used this very kind of warm colored floor, and I'm also going to change up the wall color as you can see now, and I really wanted this to look very modern but at the same time kind of warm. And these lights that I used, the ceiling lights, are part of the cool kitchen stuff pack, and the cool thing about them is that they are kind of like a spotlight, so when you place them it doesn't kind of illuminate the whole room but just a section at the bottom, and you can really kind of use them to create a really interesting light setting. And there are not that many lamps in this game that really do that. You are not really able to do that with most of the lamps, but I feel like this is like a really cool thing. So the center, the floor is illuminated, but the walls are still kind of dark, and this kind of creates a really cool atmosphere, especially in combination with some lamps on the walls. And here I'm adding a bit of dark gray. I especially use this in the hallway. Again, this is kind of very open. The hallway is totally open and it leads to the back, so the Sims can kind of leave the house in the back and go to the garden, and they can also enter the bathroom. So this hallway is kind of just a connection between the front and the back, more or less, because it's all connected and very open either way. And I decided to just add a kind of little office nook because there wasn't enough space for a separate office. So it's just kind of between the hallway and the living room. And now I'm starting to work on the second floor. As I said, there are 4 bedrooms in total, 2 regular bedrooms, 2 kids' rooms, and a couple of bathrooms. And I really kind of try to make it look modern and very kind of homey and cozy. Also, there are exciting news in the world of The Sims 4 because we are all kind of expecting a pack announcement very soon, and what we know as a matter of fact is that there are going to be 1 expansion pack, 1 game pack, and 1 stuff pack within the next 6 months. But there has been no announcement yet, and we of course are very curious what the announcement might be. But soon it's EA Play on June 8th, and Simguru Frost already teased that there will be an announcement. So on June 8th we are going to know more. Some people think that there might even be an announcement for all 3 packs. Just imagine that, but I would be happy if we could have just 1 announcement. But there's definitely something really exciting going to happen, and we also know that we are going to receive 350 new Space Games watches soon, so maybe they're going to kind of show us more about that as well. I don't know, but I'm really excited. So mark your calendar, June 8th, EA Play. You can watch it in a stream, and then we will kind of see what happens. I'm super excited for this, so I just wanted to give you guys a quick update about that in case you don't follow any of the gurus on Twitter, so you know what's going on. So I just furnished a bedroom, and now I'm working on one of the kids' rooms. This is kind of more of a teenage room, to be honest, because I didn't really include that much toys in that room. Like, no toys at all, actually. It's more like a room for a teenager that kind of still is in that phase between being a kid and a really proper teenager, because some aspects of that room are definitely quite child friendly, the whole art on the wall and all that, but I really just want to have some fun with this and wanted to use a lot of color and a couple of details. But I also used this very dark gray, and I feel like this is kind of perfect for a kind of, I don't know, for a teenage room. It like has a lot of very kind of bright colors, but it's also kind of edgy, this very dark colors, so I felt like this was a little bit different for once. And there is another bathroom. There are a couple of bathrooms in this build, actually. I feel like this is of course quite important when you are working on a family mansion, and this is the other kind of regular bedroom. Of course, you could also kind of either remodel this and turn this into a 3rd kids room, or you could simply just use it as some type of teenager bedroom or something. But I feel like I oftentimes only include kids rooms, and recently I've kind of started to also include some more other bedrooms in my build, just so there is a bit of variation going on. And this is the 2nd kids room. For this room I went with a very kind of pink, very girly, cute kind of theme, and I just used these nooks for a plant and a lamp because I wasn't really sure what to kind of place there. And the color is a mix of a very pastel pink and this very dark rich red. I think it's a very lovely combination, and then I just added some details to the hallway, a couple of paintings, but not too much because there isn't that much space actually. And soon I'm going to start to work on the front, but first I am going to add a couple of things to the garden: a swing set, monkey bars, a table and a barbecue grill, and also some rocks and a tree and some plants, just so it looks very friendly and happy. And also I have used the same rocks in the front, so I kind of wanted to use them in the garden as well, so it kind of all goes very well together. And there is a little surprise in this build. As you will see in a couple of seconds, I decided to add a pool to this build. So when I started working on this, I already kind of felt like I really wanted to add a pool, because for a proper kind of mansion build, a pool is always more or less a must and always a amazing idea. But then I didn't really have the space, and then when I was almost done, I noticed that I have these rooms at the bottom. I'm furnishing the first of these rooms right now, and this is kind of like, I don't know, like some type of garage or utility room. I don't know, I just added the flower binding table and all that, the kind of stuff that you would usually just maybe put in a shed. So I used the room for this, all the kind of stuff that you don't really want to place in the house itself, I'd say. And this is the indoor pool, so I felt like this was kind of the perfect place for this, especially because this room is quite big and it's very long, and I had no idea what else to put there. And I felt like before I'm kind of adding a gym, it would be so much better to have a proper indoor pool. So it doesn't matter what type of weather is going on the outside, you can always take a swim. I kept it once again very modern, very minimalistic. I used a lot of white and black and yeah, a bit of brown, just so I could kind of continue the theme, because there's so much brown on the exterior, so I used it at the floor. And now I'm working on the front section. As you can see, I removed the hedges and the flowers and all that, and now I'm working on the stairs. So I was actually able to place stairs in the front, because this didn't work at first, because the terrain wasn't high enough, so there wasn't enough space for stairs. I don't know, sometimes this can be so confusing. And then I still wanted to add a little bit of, I don't know, rocks and a couple of plants, and I wasn't sure at first, so now removing it again. This was kind of confusing. I felt like this was kind of the trickiest part to make the front section really look good, and I used a wood floor at the bottom because I felt like it looks great, because I used this very dark gray, almost black floor for the outside. But this kind of, I don't know, there's more variation going on, and I felt like this looks super interesting. Then the terrain was bugging, and I placed a foundation to fix that. A word of advice: if you ever encounter this, when you for no apparent reason can't change the terrain, place a foundation, delete it. This kind of resets it. I don't know, but this is a bug that I have been encountering recently. It's super annoying, but yeah, just place a foundation, delete it, and then you should be good to go. I then decided to move the lot a little bit to the back, just so I had more space in the front and I could kind of smooth out the terrain. And I added a couple of hedges, but this time they are just in one straight line, which kind of goes so well together with the whole very modern concept, because before that, as you saw, it was kind of all over the place. There was so much going on, and now it's so much more modern and very, I don't know, it's not too busy on the eye, in my opinion, when you take a look at the front. And then, of course, I had to rearrange the garden a little bit because I had moved the lot. So I moved the fence a little bit to the back, and I added a couple of flowers and some lights to the floor. So, yeah, just a little bit of detail, and then I was actually quite happy. So this is it, guys. I would like to say thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe. And as I said, you can find this build in the gallery, fully furnished, no CC, and you can find other information in the description box down below. And I hope that you guys have a perfect week, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye bye.